Welcome to the ESI Africa studio, broadcasting from the East African Power Industry Convention in Nairobi. Today I have with me David Mwangi, who is an energy consultant here in Kenya. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
David, you've been a long-standing advisory board member to the East African Power Industry Convention, and you've seen a lot of developments over the years. What developments come to mind that have been impactful for you personally?
Well, there have been, first of all, it's true that I have been an advisory member for a long time. I have been working with IPEC for almost 15 years or more. And since that time, there have been certain developments, although the power sector changes very slowly. Some of it has been more with the shift of renewables from hydro, which was the more dominant one in most countries, and was problematic because during droughts there used to be power rationing. And now in some countries there has been a shift, particularly in my home country, Kenya, to geothermal, which is, besides being renewable, it's also more reliable. It doesn't have seasonal fluctuations like hydro. And you can depend on it to provide the megawatts and the energy as well. Recently then we are seeing again more and more of the intermittent renewables coming in. Although not many have been yet commissioned in East Africa, but quite a number are under construction. And this will provide cleaner energy in East Africa, while at the same time reducing the power the unreliability of power and the power rationing that has been in place. For me personally, some of the developments that have benefited me in developing me is the fact that there is emphasis on regional integration. And even though the power interconnectors themselves are largely not yet in place, but there has been a good level of capacity building that has been done on the technical skills, on things like market rules that will apply, also on management skills that have benefited me. In particular, I remember for 2 years, from 2008 to 2010, just until I retired from Kenya Power, I acted as the alternate chair of the steering committee of the EAPP, which is a committee of the CEOs of the member utilities. So it was quite an onerous job.
Yes.
And I'm grateful that I got that opportunity from my CEO to be representing him in various meetings, and it built my capacity to manage things and to see the big picture.
So there's been a lot of developments over the years, as you say, and you mentioned construction and renewables specifically. So from these trends that have been happening in the region, which do you feel should be the focus of attention?
Well, one thing that is happening is in shifting more from the fossil-fired thermal and the hydro to geothermal and to other renewables like wind and solar, which are intermittent. There are concerns about whether the national grids of most countries are going to be able to smoothly integrate those renewables into the grid operations. And this to me remains a concern. Even here in Kenya, where next year, maybe by May or July, we expect to see the 300 megawatts of Lake Turkana come in. And it will still be quite a large percentage of what will be the installed capacity. And my fear is that some of the gaps or weaknesses in the grid that have been identified by a study that was funded by Power Africa called Grid Management Support Program, there has not been time enough to bridge those gaps. So this project will come, and the grid will still not be strong enough to accommodate, to integrate it smoothly. So we may have some bumpy ride on the system. And this is not just for Kenya. I know that even other neighboring countries have similar weaknesses in their grids, and they are also going ahead to bring in some of these intermittent renewables. So that's a challenge, plus also the fact that the system operators need to be well trained to operate the system. There needs to be some automation of the system so that a system controller will not have to give directives on phone to a generating station to reduce or raise some megawatts, because that will be too slow to correct the intermittency. So quite a bit of automation is going to be required, and we are not yet there.
So working smarter
Yes.
with the resources that we have. Yes.
Right, that would require to be done. A smarter grid and smarter operators as well. Yes.
So you've also mentioned a lot about hydro and renewables, but in the East African region there's a lot of geothermal potential, and that has been developed. So what are your thoughts around this interest in geothermal? Is it something that we should be focusing so much attention on?
I believe so, definitely. In Kenya, I'm happy that is being done. There is already a lot of focus. Not so long ago, we had about 198 megawatts of geothermal. Now we have over 600 megawatts, and we still have a long way to go, because the potential is about 10,000. We keep on saying 7,000 to 10,000 megawatts.
Yes.
Whichever number is correct, that's still quite a lot of capacity.
It is.
And we need to do that, because besides being renewable, as I had said earlier, it is a very reliable resource, and there is need to, and it's also a base load, so that we, instead of having more polluting technologies like coal, we can more rely on geothermal. And it is my hope that other East African nations that are in the Rift Valley and have geothermal potential will also do more to develop their geothermal potential.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is a regional resource.
It is a regional resource.
So at the East African Power Industry Convention, you sat on a panel discussion that was looking at regional integration, which is something that you've already touched on in our interview.
Yes.
So what were the key points that came out of that debate about regional integration?
I think some of the bigger issues were actually touched on by the ministers and the principal secretary from Kenya. On the policy issues, having the right policy framework, the legal and regulatory framework, and for me, I would also, and also institutional framework, and I would add also commercial framework. One of the things that were highlighted specifically is wheeling tariff. Tariffs for wheeling power through one nation's network by a country that is importing power from a third country.
Yes.
And that is going to be necessary, and the sooner we have that, the better. There is going to be a regional regulatory authority or regulatory body, which is happening in that the national regulators have been working as what is called an independent regulatory board of EAPP, and some capacity building has also been imparted on them. So those are some of the issues, and then of course the infrastructure itself. For many years we have been talking about doing the interconnectors. Many are still not yet in place. It is my hope that by 2019, when the backbone one, the Ethiopia to Kenya line, is expected to be commissioned, we shall then have also the line to Tanzania, the line from Kenya to Uganda and through to Rwanda. Hopefully we'll be working at 220 kV waiting to be upgraded to 400 kV. So the infrastructure is necessary, because without that, it is the one thing that is prohibiting trading right now.
Right.
I believe that if the interconnectors were there, there would be quite a bit of bilateral trading, even before we put in the market rules and create a proper market. For the foreseeable future, it is my belief that most of the trading will be through bilateral contracts rather than the market system. Yeah.
So I think that in terms of being an energy consultant, you have your ear to the ground, and as you say, regional integration is so important. We have so much generation capacity that is coming online, and we need to get it across borders. So lastly, my question to you is, as a consultant, what do you advise the industry?
To bring in the regional integration? I think one thing is to have the governments and the utilities emphasize more on regional projects. The way we got a presentation on the latest update of the East African Power Master Plan, where the consultant explained how priority was given more to projects that are going to be of regional nature rather than national projects. And I think that is important, to have the countries put more priority on projects that are national, because then it will be a win-win situation where you will have the risk-cost power generation mix from the region, and that way the national utilities will be able to even share their generation reserves, and the operational costs are going to be lower if that happens. But the countries, the utilities would need to cooperate in order for that to happen. So my advice would be, let us do that. Let us look at the region. Let us do what is good for the region, because what is good for the region is good for the nations and the utilities.
That's very good advice, and
Yes.
Regional cooperation is the emphasis here. Right. Thank you
Yes.
so much, David, for joining us.
Yeah. Welcome. Thank you for having me on the interview.
Thank you for watching. I'm Nicolette Pombo-Fonsail, editor of ESR Africa, broadcasting from the East Africa Power Industry Convention.